Now, today we are going to discuss the second section of the right view or right understanding. For right understanding, if we understand unwholesome and their root, the wholesome and their root. To review it, I must go through that very quickly. What is the unwholesome? There are 10 unwholesome. They are called 10 unwholesome karmas sometimes. In Pali, Dasa Akusala Karma. There are 3 physical, 4 verbal, and 3 mental. 3 physical unwholesome are killing, stealing, and sensual misconduct. 4 verbal unwholesome karmas are telling lies, slanderous talk, harsh speech, and gossip. 3 mental unwholesome karmas are covetousness, hatred, and ignorance or wrong view. Their roots are greed, hatred, and delusion. 10 wholesome karmas are abstaining from these 10 unwholesome karmas. Abstaining and cultivating their positive side. For instance, when we abstain from killing, there is space. When we abstain from something, there is a space. That space should be filled with loving friendliness, metta. Then hatred, not stealing. We abstain from stealing. We cultivate the thought of appreciative joy, having joy have joy for having other people have their own things, whatever it is. Instead of stealing, we appreciate it, let it go, let it be there. Then sensual misconduct, we also cultivate upekha, equanimity. Then 4 unwholesome words are telling lies, abstaining from telling lies, and then we practice telling the truth. Abstaining from harsh, slanderous talk, and then we cultivate the talk of friendliness. That means talk to bring people together. United, the divided. That kind of talk. And then instead of harsh speech, we speak in gentle, soft, kind, friendly words. And then instead of gossip, we abstain from gossip. We always speak something meaningful, the truth, the Dhamma. Whenever we meet, instead of gossiping, Khalena Dhamma Sakarcha. Discuss the Dhamma when we are together. Then for abstaining from covetousness, or that also we have to develop the thought of letting go. Then generosity. Instead of having hatred, we cultivate loving friendliness, metta. Instead of having wrong view, we cultivate right view, right understanding. These 10 are called the wholesome karmas. What are their roots? Non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. Non-greed means generosity. Non-hatred means loving friendliness, metta. Non-delusion is wisdom. Now, when the Sariputta explained this, and he said, to this extent, when a noble disciple has thus understood the unwholesome and the root of unwholesome, the wholesome and the root of wholesome, he entirely abandons the unarisen tendency to lust. He abolishes the underlying tendency to aversion. He extirpates the underlying tendency to the view and conceit. I am. View, that is, I am. That is a view. We abandon that. And by abandoning ignorance and arousing true knowledge, he here and now makes an end of suffering. By doing this, one ends one suffering in this life. When he said all this, other monks said, we go to the today's section. In today's section we say, the Venerable Sariputta says, these other monks said, saying good, friends, the bhikkhus delighted and rejoiced in the Venerable Sariputta's words. Now they appreciated what he said, and then they said, then they asked him a further question. They prompted him to talk more. But friend, might there be another way in which a noble disciple is one of right view? Could there be something else? And has arrived at this Dhamma? Then Venerable Sariputta said, yes, there is one. Then, what friends, when friends, a noble disciple understands nutriment, the origin of nutriment, the cessation of nutriment, and the way leading to the cessation of nutriment. In that way, he is one of right view and has arrived at this true Dhamma. Now, nutriment, who is noble disciple? Noble disciple is one who has learned the Dhamma, who has respect for the noble ones, who follows the noble one's teaching, who is disciplined himself in the noble one's teaching, and associate the noble ones. Such a person is called a noble disciple. Noble disciple. That means he is sincerely listening to Dhamma, associate with right person, practicing right Dhamma, for what? For gaining popularity?
No, gaining wisdom and attaining Nirvana.
Yes. The Buddha called such a person who is doing all these things, is doing all these things for one reason. What is the reason? To liberate from suffering. So one who works diligently, sincerely, to liberate themselves from suffering, such a person is called a noble disciple. Buddha doesn't gain anything from that person. He is working for his own salvation. One who works for his own salvation is called a noble person. If you do anything for the salvation of anybody else, you are not noble. You have to liberate yourself. That is the utmost compassionate attitude of the Buddha. This is how he shows his compassion. You work hard to liberate yourself, then you are a noble person. While working to liberate yourself, you can help others. But the primary aim is to liberate yourself. So, anyway, that person understands the nutriment. Although the word we use nutriment in English, the Pali word is Aahara. Pali word is Aahara. Aahara is a noun. Its verb is Aahara. In Pali, Aahara means bring. If I want to ask you to bring a book, I would say in Pali, Potthakam Aahara. Potthaka means book. Potha in English. Aahara means bring. Whatever, lekani, pencil or pen, bring. Arms ball, bring. Pattang Aahara, Chivaram Aahara. Like that, Aahara means bring, bring, bring. So, the body, this body and mind, wants to bring things bring things into it. Physical body demands something to bring. This body demands so many things. Nutriment particularly, to sustain it. And therefore it is called Aahara. Aahara. So Venerable Sariputta said, if somebody knows nutriments to sustain and the origin of nutriment, cessation of nutriment and the way leading to the cessation of nutriment. When he says these four statements, can you guess what he was referring to? It is very standard.
Four Noble Truths.
Yeah, you say. You say. Correct. Nutriment, arising of nutriment, disappearing of nutriment, and the way leading to the disappearance of nutriment. This is how the Four Noble Truths actually. This is the formula for Four Noble Truths. Suffering, cause of suffering, end of suffering, path leading to the end of suffering. This is the formula Venerable Sariputta repeatedly used throughout this discourse. So, now he goes to little, in Buddha's teaching and his very enlightened disciples' teaching have a very clear structure of his lecture. This is sort of a lecture. When you give a good lecture, if you are a good speaker, the speech must have three segments. Three segments. The beginning, the body, and end. The beginning you give the sort of introduction. That's called Uddesa. This is Uddesa. Every section when the Sariputta used this method, because every section is like a small essay. Introduction, the body, and conclusion. So in the introduction he says, it's just like I'm going to speak on such and such a subject, this is its summary. Like that. First he said, if somebody knows nutriment, cause of nutriment, or origin of nutriment, disappearance of nutriment, and the way leading to the disappearance of nutriment. And then he explained what the nutriment is. And what is nutriment? What is the origin of nutriment? What is the cessation of nutriment? What is the way leading to the cessation from nutriment? There are 4 kinds of nutriment for the maintenance of beings that already have come to be and for the support of those about to come to be. That means those of us who are born need nutriments. And those who are on the way to take birth, in wombs, in eggs, in wherever they are getting ready to be born, also need nutriments. If the embryo in the mother's womb does not get sufficient nutriments, can that embryo grow? Cannot. According to the Mahanidana Sutta, that embryo needs mentality and materiality, nama rupa. That is consciousness and earth, water, air, fire elements. Without these basic things, that embryo would not grow. And therefore they are food for that new embryo, in addition to material food. So, those of us are born also need this kind of food to sustain this body and the mind. So the body demands so many nutriments from outside, mind demands so much nutriments from outside and inside in order to sustain this life. Now he talks about the material food. They are physical food as nutriment, gross or subtle. Needless to say, what are the physical food that we consume? All sort of physical food. They can come in a solid form or liquid form to maintain this body. It is because of this demand for nutriment for physical bodily sustenance, we fight. We fight for food in one way or the other, capturing even countries to get their material to produce food, material food. And then they are called Kablika. We come to Pali. First section of this Dhamma class is explaining the Dhamma involved in this section. Second part is the Pali. The handout we distributed is for you to learn Pali. Now let me finish the Dhamma involved in it. So, second is contact is the second. Now we know the physical food we need to sustain our body. I think I mentioned it last time when Buddha asked Sopaka, a Samanera, 10 questions to give him his high ordination. Now we give high ordination in a different way. Some of you who were here yesterday might have noticed him giving him high ordination yesterday. We did not ask him those 10 questions. We asked him something different questions, some different questions. The Buddha gave ordination to this novice called Sopaka, asking him only 10 questions. Question number 1. He asked, what is one? What is one?
Nutriment.
Huh?
Nutriment.
Yeah, this novice was very smart. He did not learn this at school. Nobody taught him at home, no mother, no father. But he was very smart. So when the Buddha asked, what is one? Ekanama king, he said, Sabbe Satta Aahara Titika. His answer was, all living beings are sustained by food. One universal, most essential factor to survive is food. Other things also need, but one of them is food. So, second is contact. Mental volition, what you call, second is contact. Contact, what are the contacts? Eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, and mind contact. Eyes contact with visible object. Ear contact with sound. Nose contact with smell. Tongue contact with taste. The body contact with the physical, tangible object. And the mind contact with what?
Mental thoughts.
Mental objects.
Mental objects. Sometimes they call Dhamma. Mind contact Dhamma. Word Dhamma has many meanings, but simply to say mind object. Whatever mind can think, imagine, visualize, fantasize, daydream, whatever mind contact, those are the food for the mind. Thoughts are the food for the mind. Otherwise, mind will die. There has to be some contact. Then, third is volition. Volition is the third. What is volition? Will. How many of them are there? Also 6. Rupa Sanchetana, Saddha Sanchetana, Gandha Sanchetana, Rasa Sanchetana, Pottabha Sanchetana, Dhamma Sanchetana. Rupa Sanchetana is thinking of forms. That is the thought. volition. Saddha Sanchetana, thinking of sounds, thinking of of smells, thinking of taste, thinking of touch, thinking of mind objects. These 6 are called volitions. According to Abhidhamma, there are 52 volitions. 52. Chetasika. Then the fourth is consciousness as the fourth. How many types of consciousness we have?
Also 6.
6.
Huh?
6.
6. Yes. Consciousness also, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. 6. Now, how can they become food? How can they become food? Consciousness becomes food for the mind. Consciousness becomes food for the thought. Thought will never arise without consciousness. Any consciousness that arises, any thought that arises needs consciousness as the base to support, sustain the thought. So, then when Sariputta goes to explain a little further, he said, these are the foods. Then the origin of this, how they arise. With the arising of craving, there is the arising of nutriment. That is very important to remember. What are the nutriments? Material food, contact,
and volition, and consciousness.
and consciousness. Now, material food arises when desire arises, craving arises. Isn't it true? We want to eat. We want to eat. So, what do? We try to produce food. We have a desire to eat. Every cell is demanding food. Every cell in our body demands food. You have to produce it. That demand is called craving. Little baby, as soon as thrust into this world, cry. Why? Demanding. Craving is there. Babies are not that innocent. Full of craving. We all know, mothers know, everybody knows. You feed and put to sleep, 3 hours later, again crying. Baby doesn't say anything, does not know anything. But the cells in the body triggers the hunger. When the cells in the body is starving, no enough nutriment, no enough oxygen, then it triggers our hunger. And then automatically sound comes as cry. That cry, I think I mentioned it last time also, that cry continues throughout our life. throughout our life we cry for food, don't we? It started at the moment of birth, and then we keep crying. Now we cannot hear our cries, but it is smoldering inside. Inside, there's a cry. There's a cry not for material food, but immaterial food. Aahara, mano sanchetana, vijnana. We cry for contact, don't we? We want to see, we are crying for seeing. You don't hear that's a cry, but it is inside. Inside, we want to see this movie, that picture, this person, this tree, that animal, this animal. We want to this country, this color, that color. Don't we do have that? That is the cry, that the desire, inside. So when the Masariputra said, when desire arises, nutriment arises. This cry arises in us, this cry means desire arises, nutriment arises. When this cry ceases, that means when craving ceases, nutriment ceases. That means the first one is the noble truth of suffering. First one is the noble truth of suffering. This food that we consume in any form is a form of suffering, without, of course, which this body, mind will not be sustained. Then the cause of that craving or that cry is the desire. That is why he says, okay. With the arising of craving, there is the arising of nutriment. With the cessation of craving, there is the cessation of nutriment. And then the way leading to the cessation of nutriment is just this Noble Eightfold Path. Okay. Now, we must go to the paper and try to see the Pali in that. And again, Sariputta, this is repeated at the end of every section. When the noble disciple has thus understood nutriment, the origin of nutriment, the cessation of nutriment, and the way leading the cessation of nutriment, he entirely abandons the underlying tendency to greed. If the greed is the cause of nutriment, and the nutriment is the suffering, then in order to get rid of that suffering, we have to get rid of greed. So when nutriment, he entirely abandons his underlying tendency to greed, he abolishes the underlying tendency to aversion, he extirpates the underlying tendency to the view and contact, the conceit, I am. That means ahankara. I am means ahankara. Asmimana. These two words are very important, very profound two words. Ahang means I. In Pali, ahang means I. Ahankara means I maker. Kara means maker. Like somebody who makes something is called kara. kriyakara, one who act. Kammakara, kamma means work. Kammakara means labor. Laborer. So dhammakara, we are dhammakaras. Those who teach dhamma. And so kara means kara represents the person who does that particular act. So I am ahankara. Ahankara means conceits, makes I. Ahankara. It also is called mamankara. Mamankara means my maker. My maker. Ahankara, I maker. Mamankara, my maker. Here only ahankara is used. He abandons ahankara. What makes I? Can anybody tell me what makes I?
Delusion or ignorance.
All three.
Our ignorance or delusion. We think that rather that since I'm acting, it's me who is acting. It's we make it. I. It's a.
Yes, actually, the ignorance and craving get together to make I. Ignorance and craving get together to make I. I think I gave the simile the other day. I made the simile. On and on with I in the middle. What is that?
Onion.
On and on with I I in the middle. Onion. One side on is craving, other side on is ignorance, in the middle is I. When these two work together, these two must always work together to make I. With only one of them, you cannot make I. You have to have ignorance, you have to crave. Craving is the mother, ignorance is the father. So these two make I, which doesn't have a gender. If one on is Y, other on is X, I calls I'm a boy. If one on is X, other on also is X, then I calls I'm a girl. Just think about it. Greed and ignorance keep supporting this. Greed never gets rid of I. Greed cannot exist without I. Ignorance cannot exist without I. So, I cannot exist without greed, nor without ignorance. And therefore, these two are called I maker. I maker is greed and ignorance combined together. You just think about it, whether it is correct or not, just keep thinking about it. I want you to think and see how true this our onion is. This was a joke. Sometimes when we were young people, make this joke and give this puzzle sort of puzzle. Ask us to tell what is on and on with I in the middle. We keep thinking of all sort of things. And then the man who asked the question says, onion. Only then we begin to think, yes, that is true. It is philosophical aspect is one own is greed, other own is ignorance, and they jointly create. They jointly create the baby, I, which has no gender in itself. No gender. I has no gender. But we all have it. We all have it. Yeah?
Yeah, well, continuing when you said it's a bit like a puzzle,
Yeah.
isn't that the significance of the onion is that when you take it all apart, there's no center.
Right. So, that is why it is delusion. It is a delusion. I does not exist without ignorance or greed. And when greed and ignorance disappears, I disappears. Just like when you take an onion, you keep peeling and peeling and peeling and peeling. Inside there is no one central hard core in it. Similarly, if we keep looking at us, our form, feeling, perception, thoughts, consciousness, each of them we take care of. Look at them very, very carefully, very mindfully, closely. Ask ourselves, can we find I in any of them? Can we find I in the form, I in the feeling, I in the perception, I in the volitional formation, or I in the consciousness? We will never find it, no matter how much physics and chemistry and biology, microbiology, macrobiology, nanotechnology.
So you mean I by something permanent? That I you're trying to find is something permanent in all these things.
Yeah, you try to find permanent I. You cannot find permanent I.
In any of this.
Therefore, I is like, I think I mentioned this many times, trying to see Saturday. Can you see Saturday? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, January, February, Equator, Capricorn, Cancer. Can you see them? We cannot see them, but conventionally they are very useful. Very useful. Similarly, I is very useful to communicate. I tell you. You understand, right? When I say I tell you, you understand. If I say, these 5 aggregates talk to those 4 aggregates, can anybody understand? No. And therefore, for our communication, the word I is very, very important. Okay, that is the Dhamma, and then we go to the Pali. Today is
28.
28. You see in a handout, Sada Usote Kote Bhikkhu. Topic is Aaharo. Aaharo is nominative singular noun. Aaharo. Sadhu, the word is sadhauso. Sadhauso. We have to break it into 2, or rather 3. When you break into 3, you can see sadhu, into two. Sadhu, also. So, when these two words join together, you is deleted, eliminated, in order to join these two words. Sadhu, also is called sadhauso. Sadhauso. T is quotation mark. Ko indeed. Te means they, those bhikkhus. Ayasmato sariputtasya bhashatam abhinanditva anumoditva. Ayasmato is of venerable. The word ayasma is used in Pali to address a friend. The other monks called Venerable Sariputta a friend. Sariputta called them friends. So each other address one another, ayasma. Ayasmato is of genitive case singular. Sariputtasya of Sariputta. Is there anybody who does not know Sariputta? I think you know Sariputta? No? And where is the boy? Huh?
He took a break.
Going to drink some water.
Nandima, Chandima? Her name is Chandima. Do you know Sariputta? Oh, I'm sure you have not met him. Sariputta,
Wisest monk?
very wise monk, wisest monk. In addition to being wise, what was his position? He was Buddha's right-hand man. Buddha has two disciples, right-hand disciple and a left-hand disciple. Right-hand disciple is Sariputta, left-hand disciple is Moggallana. So he has to be very wise to be Buddha's right-hand man. Right-hand man. So he was, this discourse delivered by him. Bhasitam, the word bhasa, bhasa comes from the bhasita comes from the word bhasa. Bhasa means language. Bhasitam means words. What he said. Abhinanditva. Abhinandatva is delighted, having delighted. Its present verb form is abhinandati, abhinandati, abhinandanti, and so forth. That's how we conjugate this verb. Abhinanditva, having rejoiced or delighted. And anumoditva. Anumoditva also comes from the root word anumodati. Anumodati, anumodami, anumodatu, anumodati, anumodanti, and like that we conjugate. This one is past participle. Then asmantang sariputtam uttarin panyam apuchum. Asmantang, venerable, Sariputtam is the accusative case, singular. Uttering further. Panyang, question. Panyang in single is prashna, Sanskrit prashna. Pali, panyang. Apuchung. Puchati is a present tense. Puchati means question, ask. Puchati, puchanti, puchami, and so on. Apuchung is past tense. Past, what you call third person, plural. Apuchung means asked him. Siya, if the word siya, the verb siya is used at the end of the sentence, it is just a verb. But here it is a question mark. Might. Pana also, also again a friend. Anyampi pariyayo. Pariyaya means method or system or way. Anyo means another. Is there another way? Might there be another way? Yatha means in which. Yatha tata. Which thus. Ariyasavako Sammaditthi hoti. I mentioned earlier noble disciple. Noble disciple is called Ariyasavaka. Noble disciple. Sammaditthi hoti. Sammaditthi. Sammaditthi is the first step of the what? Noble Eightfold Path. Sammaditthi. So when Sariputta explained this one word in this entire discourse, combining it with Noble Eightfold, Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths. So, Ujjugatas ditti dhamme aveccha pasadena samannagato. Uju gata. Uju means, what is uju? Uju means straight. In Sanskrit, riju. Uju gata assa. Ujjugata assa is Ujjugatas. One A is omitted, deleted, in order to join these two words. Assa means whose, ditti, view. Dhamme, in the Dhamma. Aveccha, unwavering is not 100% true. Aveccha means, if you look at the dictionary, there's a Pali dictionary of Pali idiom. In that dictionary, this word is very clearly defined. Aveccha means having understood with knowledge. Confidence endowed with knowledge, called aveccha pasada. Pasada means confidence. Avecchapasada means confidence endowed with knowledge. That means when you have a knowledge, your confidence is firm because there is no doubt in your mind. You know the subject, you have the knowledge, and therefore you will not have doubt. That kind of confidence is called avecchapasada. Avecchapasada. So, faith endowed with knowledge, that is what the Buddha promoted. That is what the Buddha wanted us to have. Not just blind faith, faith on face value, looking outside, but the faith established in knowledge is called avecchapasada. So the Venerable Sariputta wanted these monks to understand what the right understanding is. Right understanding needs unwavering, unshakable faith endowed with knowledge. Agato imam saddhammam. Agata means coming, arrive. Imam saddhammam. Then when the Sariputta went on explaining, yato ko avso arya savako aharanta pajanati. Yato means when, ko indeed, arya savako noble disciple, aharancha pajanati. Ahara means that which nutriment. As I said, that which brings sustenance to the body is called Aahara. Pajanati means know, understand. In the right view, in this Sammaditthi, Venerable Sariputta explains how one understands things correctly, not how one views things correctly. That is why I like the word understanding rather than view. Okay, Aahara samudayancha pajanati, Aahara nirodhancha pajanati. Samudaya, you have studied this word many times in Satipatthana Sutta. Samudaya dhammanupassiva, why dhammanupassiva and so forth. Samudaya origin. Pajanati understands, and nirodha, cessation, understanding, are nirodha gamini tatpada. Nirodha gamini means leading. Patipada means the way. Pajanati, understand. To this extent, ettavata bhikkhu avso arya savako sammaditthi. To that extent, the person becomes right understanding. Ettavata means in that way. Arya savako sammaditthi. Then, Udugatas, we explained that only. Agato imam saddhammam, we explained. Katamo pana avso arya aharo. Katamo ahara samudayo. Katamo means what? Ahara, food or nutriment. Samudaya, arising. Katamo, what? That's again, next word we have to learn is only Nirodha. Others are the same.
Right.
Then Chattaro means
4.
four kinds. If you say Chattari, it's just 4. Chattaro is 4 kinds. Also, as I mentioned, friends, Bhutanang va Sattanang Titiya. Bhuta. Now, you hear the word Bhuta, Bhuta, Pisacha, Yakka, Gandhabba, you have the word Bhuta. Here doesn't mean ghost, goblin, demons. Bhuta means, generally people think Bhuta means ghost, demon, goblin. But here Bhuta means that which has come into being, which has come into being. It comes from the root bhu. Bhu meaning to be in English. Bhu, to be. Bhuta means being, the one that has already become is called Bhuta. Bhuta of being that already come to be. Sattanam Titiya. See, the English sentence is, translation has many words. To translate the word Bhutanam. Bhutanam means of the plural of being, those who have come into existence. Sattanam, Satta means, I mentioned this word before, why all these beings are called Satta. You remember that meaning? No. Because we don't discuss all these things very often. In Samyutta Nikaya, Buddha defined the word Satta. He said, Satto asattoti satto. Satta means that entity which clings to something. The being that clings to something is called Satta. Then Buddha asked, what do they cling to? Rupaya sattati. Vedanaya asattati, sanyaya asattati, sankharesu asattati, vijnanasmin asattati. Asattati, they are attached to the body, feeling, perception, volitional formations and consciousness. Therefore they are called tasma sattoti uchyati. Therefore they are called satta. Buddha and Arahant are called not sattas. You can see in Brahmana Vagga, in Dhammapada, last chapter, 26th chapter, Asattam Sugatam Buddham Tamaham Brumi Brahmana. Asattam Sugatam Buddham. Asatta Sugatavu Buddha. Asatta means one who is not attached to the 5 aggregates. Therefore Buddha is called Asatta. Arahant also called Asatta. All else, even Sotapanna is Asatta, Satta, because he still has attachment to his body feeling and so forth. He is not totally free of that. Only when one is completely free from the last subtle fetters, last 5 subtle fetters, that means Arahant. completely free from attachment, is called asat. Everyone is called sat. Human, animal, divine, Brahmas, gods, and goblins, and all these are sat. So, okay. Thiti means steady, or existing. Sambhavesi, that is another very beautiful word. Those two about to come to be, Sambhavesi. We recite this word, most Theravada Buddhists know this word, Sambhavesi. Where can we find this word that we hundreds and thousands of times we have recited?
Something.
Eh? What? What?
Karaliya.
Karaniya Metta Sutta. Karaniya Metta. Very good. Good memory. Karaniya Metta Sutta. You recite the Karaniya Metta Sutta, you will see this word. Sabbe Satta Bhasugiratta. So, those who about to come. So, in Karaniya Metta Sutta, we practice metta not only for those who are born, but those who are coming into being, in the process of becoming a being. In the process of becoming a being. You understand what that is? Even that little being deserves our metta to grow, to live. And therefore this metta practice is a wonderful, deep practice. And this teaching of nutriment also include this being that is in the process of growing in the place, as I mentioned earlier. Then anuggaha. Anuggaha means support. Anuggahan kattva silang detame Bhante, you say. The anuggaha means compassion. Here anuggaha means support. Katame chattaro, what are the four? Kabalinkaro aharo. Kabalinkara means, kabala means making into what you call morsels. You make into balls or something that you can bite. That's called kabali. Kabali means kabali in Sinhalese. Kabali. You break into pieces. Kara means making. As I mentioned earlier, kabaling kara means you make them into pieces. Aharo, olariko va sukumova. Olarika means gross. In many Sinhalese words come from Pali Sanskrit. So even in Sinhalese we read olarika manmaniya. We say that, don't we? Olarika kata. These gross words, gross man, no polished, not polished. For that we use the word olarika. Then sukuma. Sukuma means in Sinhalese sium. Sukuma. Subtle. Very subtle. So the nutriment can be gross or subtle, in other words. Actually, every kind of food ends up in very, very, very fine, subtle form in order to absorb into these tiny little capillaries. In order for every tiny little cell to absorb the nutriment must turn into subtle form, as blood. In that also there are cells. Even in those cells in blood has nutriment. Actually, blood itself is a great nutriment. Without that, we will kaput. Passa means contact. Dutiyo, second. Mano sanchetana. Mano means mind, sanchetana means volition, thinking. So, mental volition. Tatiya. Now you should learn some Pali words. Eko. One. That means only one. Dutiyo,
Two.
second. Dutiyampi Bhuta and Sat. Dutiyampi Dhamma. Dutiya means for the second time. Then Tatiya. Tatiya means third. Okay. Vijnanam chattaram. Chatuttam. Vijnana means consciousness. That comes from the root jna. Jna to know. Jna to know. The consciousness function is to know, to be aware. Chatutto, Chatuttam, the fourth. Now you learn Dutiya, Tatiya, Chatutta. Second, third, fourth. Then Tanha Samudaya, Aahara Samudaya. Tanha is
What do you mean?
craving. Cause of
Crazy.
what is? Suffering. Tanha is cause of suffering. And then when this cause arises, that suffering arises. Whole nutriment is representing our suffering. All nutriments representing our suffering. Okay? So you want to go? I see when you are twisting and turning and you become restless. Yeah. Okay, I know. You have to drive for many hours. I think we can also close the class now. I'm not Nirodha, Aahara Nirodha. Okay. Ayang Ariyavatan Kumago. Ayang, this eva just. Eva is used to emphasize. Nothing else. To end this course of nutriment, course of suffering, is the Noble Eightfold Path. So Buddha said, Ayam, Sariputta said, Ayam eva, this only, or eva means just. This word we have seen in many places. I am eva rivattanduko maggu. Attangiko maggu. Atta anga. Attanga. Atta anga means 8. Anga means
Angle. Angle.
factors, limbs.
Angle. Yeah.
Yes.
Angle.
Limbs, branches. Yes.
Also angle, Bhante.
Angle.
Yeah.
For angle
Yeah.
in geometry.
Yeah.
Angle.
Yeah.
Anga.
Angle.
Yeah, I think that also is anga. But here anga means limb, parts. Hmm? Maggo is fat. Then Aahara losa patipat. Then 8 fat is enumerated and given the number, given the names. I think this will be enough for today's Dhamma, and the rest is repetition. So I don't have to say anything about that. Okay. If you have any questions outside this,
Bhante, I have a question.
yeah.
So, why it's the other words, the nutriments, the form and feeling is that the physical food part? The nutriments, we have physical food, contact, volitional formation, and consciousness. But if you try to sort of bring in the 5 aggregates, the feelings is that not a nutriment then?
Feeling is not mentioned here. Kablinkara, Arahant, Vijnanara, Manosanchara. Now, when you mention phassa, contact,
Right.
contact is the what you call, becomes the food for feeling.
I see, that's all.
So, in the 5 aggregates, you have what you call feeling also included here.
Right, I see.
Yeah.
So, phassa includes feel.
Contact, as soon as contact arises, this is very interesting. When you pay total attention to your experiences, any tiny little contact comes along with feeling. Feeling can never arise without contact. So the contact is the food for feeling.
I see.
And when you feel, it becomes food for perception.
Right.
So you have sanya. Then, when the perception arises, it becomes food for thinking. Rupa, sanya, rupa, sanchetana. Sabda sanchetana, gandha sanchetana, and so forth. When thought arises, sanchetana means thinking about, thinking about it. When that thought arises, that thought becomes the nutriment for craving.
Mm.
For instance, the thought of food, there is a craving for food. Then there will be rupa vitakka,
Mm.
thinking of, further thinking of vitakka. Then rupa vichara, sustaining
Mm.
the same thought in the mind. And then it repeats, perpetuates.
So Bhante, we talked about hunger, and that's a nutriment. So what happens when someone attain liberation like Arahanthood?
Mhm.
They still eat, but that's not a nutriment then? It's already...
Nutriment, that's true. That's a good question. Arahants and Buddhas know the taste.
Mm-hmm.
It is called, about the Buddha and Arahant, rasa patisangvedi tathagato na rasa raga patisangvedi.
Mm.
They know the taste, they feel the taste, but they don't have a desire for it.
Mm.
Raga, there is no clinging for that. They know the taste, but they have no any craving or desire for the taste, for the food, particular food. That is why whatever they get into their arms bowl, they eat. They don't question whether it is tasty or not.
Mm.
Whatever food, it doesn't matter what food it is, so long as it is usable and not poisonous or so forth, whatever they eat. Rasa patisangvedi tathagu, that means they know the taste more than anybody else.
Hmm.
Why? Because their taste buds are very clean and clear. Because the mind is clean and clear. When the mind is clean, everything is clean. The blood circulation is clean, the thinking is clean, feeling is clean, even the taste buds are clean. And therefore they taste better than anybody else.
Mm.
And yet they don't have desire, craving.
So,
Why not? Because this so-called most delicious taste is impermanent.
It's fulfilled.
They see impermanence there. They see impermanence very deeply. And then there is no room for desire to arise. That is why they don't. Other people know impermanence only when somebody dies. Or somebody is very feeble, very weak like me. Only then they think of impermanence.
Bhante, is that why on the day that the Buddha reached enlightenment, when the milk rice was brought to him, he didn't need to taste it or anything on the gold plate?
What?
When the milk rice was presented to the Buddha on the day of his enlightenment on the gold plate, is that why he didn't need? He already knew the
Yeah.
taste, he knew
Now
everything.
the day he attained enlightenment, he got milk rice. And he ate that. After that, 49 days he did not eat. 7 weeks he did not eat. That food plus the Vijnana Aahara, Mano Sanchetana in the Buddha's own pure mind itself generated pure bodily cells,
Hmm.
which was so calm, relaxed, peaceful that they don't feel hunger. So that is why the Buddha said, Priti Bhakka Bhavisama Deva Abhasarayata. They ate to enjoy the piti, the joy.
Joy,
Joy itself is a
rapture,
food, nutriment. So it arises in the mind, but it charges the whole body with that joy. Joy, entire body is charged with this joy. Their metabolism is so slow. They are in hibernation.
Hmm.
You know, when animals go to hibernation, they don't eat anything.
Right.
Polar bears and so forth. They're so cold, you know, everything is frozen. Perhaps everything in their body also must be frozen. Basically. That is very mundane, material, unenlightened animals can stay without food for how long? 2 months, 3 months?
Right.
Now this is an individual who has perfectly understood everything. And the joy arises in the mind is so great that the person doesn't have any desire for food. So after a certain period of time, the body needs some nutriment to survive. So they will eat a little bit of it. That is why Buddha always emphasized the Aahara Mattanyutam, moderation in food. When we eat moderately and spend more time in meditation, less time in eating.
Any other questions?
Bhante,
I think that is. Yeah, you have a question?
Bhante, you mentioned about this Aahara, the volitional will, and then consciousness. So, will you mentioned that thinking about the 6 sense, like objects of the senses, that also is a nutriment, and then consciousness also incorporates the thinking thoughts. So can you clarify that?
Yeah. Mentality, materiality, Nama Rupa, support each other. So therefore, they are food for each other. Mentality, what are the mentality?
Basically, there will be perception,
Pasa, Chetana,
then memory or volitional, perception, and memory,
feeling, perception,
then volitional
formations, consciousness, and attention. All these support consciousness. Phassa, Vedana, Sanya, Chetana, Manasikara. Phassa, Vedana, Sanya, Chetana, Manasikara. Contact, feeling, thought, attention, perception. Support consciousness. Consciousness cannot arise by itself. But these 5 cannot exist alone without consciousness. So you can see inner mechanism within the mind itself, mentality itself. And on the other hand, mentality cannot exist without materiality. There has to be some kind of matter in most even subtle form for the consciousness to survive. And therefore, materiality support mentality. They are called in Abhidhamma Anyamanya Pacchaya. Anyamanya Pacchaya. Anyamanya means supporting each other. You scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of thing.
So Bhante, the follow-up question would be that when you see that, not to see, identify with it. So how do we? So we see that because of this arises, because of this ceases. So we are, as our consciousness, our purpose is to know it without getting identified. That's a part of our contemplation. And so this should be part of our contemplation, that knowing, seeing, knowing that I am seeing you, and then what a perception is happening, but instead of getting more proliferating more thoughts or something, I just remain with that essence of seeing, and arising and passing of it, and this is where we need to be basically. So, and it's like part of practice, awareness practice. How should
Yes. Actually, if you gain into concentration, you can see dependent origination right there. Everything has duality. When one arises, the other arises along with that at the same time. When passes away, one passes away, other passes away at the same time. That you can see happening in your meditation. Rising, for instance, certain sensation rises. Along with that sensation, you have feeling. Along with that sensation, you have awareness. When that sensation passes away, that awareness also passes away. When something else arises, you are aware of that, aware of the rising of something else, and as that passes away, that awareness also passes away. So this duality always happens. One exists and the other exists. When one passes away, other passes away.
And now, stepping back, how would I see like my craving and my so in that part, so what I need to see is like I'm part of this because of my craving, I'm paying the attention, or my greed, and then because I'm certainly it's there. We are there. We are unenlightened beings. It's there. So how I would understand my craving? How would I
Understand your greed.
Understand my greed.
Greed. That is the important part. Because of your greed, in a very subtle way, you think this is my feeling, this is my thought, this is my perception, because of the greed. The very nature of greed is to possessiveness. If you don't have that possessiveness, then you simply see rising and falling, without trying to possess that rise and fall as yours. That is where I intervenes.
I identify with it. So the part of practice is to
That is why we say from the very beginning, when you meditate, don't try to think. I breathe out. I breathe in, I breathe out. Leave the I alone, delete I. Just notice inhaling and exhaling. The moment I came into the picture, greed came into the picture.
So can I just start? If I have greed, it's because I already want something. I already have a desire to. That's why I'm greedy. I am greedy of something. So they come together. If I greed, maybe it's because I'm in pain and I'm suffering. So if I'm, you know what I'm saying? If I greed, like envy of something, is because I already have. I'm already envying something.
Mm-hmm.
So they're together. Instead of just saying
Yeah.
one support the other.
Right.
If I'm happy, it's because I am, I have joy to something else. So, I'm the joy of having my son. So that's why I'm happy. So there's one with the other. That one does not exist without the other.
Yeah.
I get it. So it's already.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you think of your son,
Mm-hmm.
are you happy?
Yes.
Why?
Because I am proud of him, and he's doing well, and he's and I see him happy too, and
Why you feel proud of your son?
well, because sometimes we're not always proud, but I know for sure that he's in a good path, and
Now, you did not get it.
okay. Also, why am I proud of my son?
Why you are happy thinking of your son?
Mm.
Why are you not happy thinking of somebody else's son?
Mm? Well, I am happy because I guess of my son because he came from
That
me.
is because of your son.
Exactly, because he came from me. Exactly, that's what I'm saying, right?
So long as you have this, my son, you are happy.
Exactly.
If you think of a son, somebody's son,
Yeah. Hopefully they're happy of their son. That's their separate entity. Right.
then you don't have that joy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a son, it's a son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No joy.
Mm-hmm. No joy, yeah.
As soon as you
Yeah, so I was saying, right, one with the other.
Yeah. That is true, I think enough, eh?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying.
Thank you, Bhante.